He is the founder of the Carbon Tracker Initiative. Mark, it's good to see you. Are you a half glass full or a half glass empty person today?
Well, coming back from the COP, I've got to say I'm positive. I'm more half glass full. It's not what everyone was asking for, but the key thing is that fossil fuels were really at the heart of the discussions leading up into the COP, in the discussions of the COP, and now looking back, I think we can say that this is probably a key changing, a pivotal moment, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's remarkable that we've had, 20 odd COP summits now, and the elephant in the room has never really been addressed, and that is fossil fuels. So the language is significant, and it puts the fossil fuel industry on notice. How will markets and banks react to that? And most importantly, I suppose, the shareholders?
Well, when we last spoke about this, Christian, we did a couple of years ago during the Glasgow COP, we were making the point that fossil fuels were not being discussed. And here we are just back from Dubai, and it's what everyone is talking about. The signal really to the industry is that this is an industry which is structurally in decline. You've got the rise of renewable energy. You've got the fact that electric vehicles are now, 50% of sales in China. So that's going to be a fundamental challenge to anybody investing in fossil fuels for the future. This is an industry which is clearly entering into its end game. Renewables are ultimately growing faster than fossil fuels, and that will mean that clean energy will win. Now, investors have got to act. We've got to deploy huge amounts of clean energy. We've got to build up the grid. Not just in the UK, obviously, where it's needed, but all over the world. It's all about electrifying everything. If we can do that, that really will be the death knell of fossil fuels. I think the thing I heard today, and it's right, is that any government thinking that they can hand out new oil and gas licenses or coal mining permits, anybody will be able to challenge them and say, look, if you're a signatory to the Paris Agreement, if you've committed to the Dubai Accords, then there's no grounds for any new licensing for oil and gas. And I'm expecting to see legal challenges, even in the UK here, just wondering why the UK government is handing out new licenses.
That's always been the important point that you've made to me whenever we've been at these summits, is that we don't look at the sunk assets, the costs to the business of investing more and more money in an asset that they won't be able to use, that they won't be able to take out of the ground. And I suppose in that sense, the language, as you suggest, is crucially important, because shareholders will be able to point to this. It's why I asked you about the shareholders. They will point to that and say, the government is a signatory to this. We have to take this now much more seriously.
We do. I mean, a Carbon Tracker, we did a roundtable with a major UK bank, actually in Dubai. They invited their oil and gas clients, their investors, to join the discussion. And what I found, much to my surprise, is that these investors are actually very well informed. They can see what's happening. They can see the rise of companies like Tesla, and they can see that the industry, the oil and gas industry, is really on this sort of pivotal moment. So. You asked if I'm optimistic. I mean, the only thing that I do express some concerns about is that transitioning away is not quite the same as phasing out or phasing down. It suggests that things could go slowly. I worry about the Pacific Island states. I worry about countries where 2 degrees, 1.5 degrees is the absolute minimum of warming that they will accept without, climate catastrophe. And of course, next year we'll be looking for something a lot more ambitious than what we heard this time round. And I'm optimistic that we can, but we've got to remember, particularly the people in the global south that are on the receiving end of some of these extreme weather events, whether it's storms or catastrophic winds or droughts. I mean, they're the ones who really that we think about at this time. We have to remember they half of what was at the COP, really.
Yeah, I mean, the point you make about the next time, that's crucially what we should focus on, because I think people have to see this as a progression. This was a stock taking, a progress report on how far we'd come. And of course, Brazil in 2025 will be the point at which countries decide what they're going to do up to 2035 and beyond. That's really the summit that will probably determine our future. So do you think this text lays the groundwork for Brazil? Does it change the thinking 2 years out, such that come 2025, the ambition there will be that much greater?
There will be the ambition there, but look, the oil and gas industry is an industry which made hundreds of billions of pounds in excess profits in the last 18 months. and that money would have covered loss and damage, for example, multiple times over. You've got an industry which is still politically extremely influential. Just have to look at their influence, whether it's the Middle East or the US.
Plenty of lobbyists in Dubai, right?
Well, just look at that letter from the OPEC members saying everyone has got to rally. The future of the fossil fuel industry is being challenged by the Dubai Roundtable, and that just goes to show how much is at stake. So what we expect, I think, what I'm expecting from the Brazil discussions is the door closing on the power of the fossil fuel politicians, whether they're based in North America or in Europe or in the Middle East, and that we can move past them and talk about the new economy that we're building, the renewable energy, clean energy system. And what I want to see in Brazil is some of these very successful business people who, Elon Musk from Tesla turning up to the COP would be interesting, speaking about what this new future looks like, and actually think what the world will be cleaner, the air will be cleaner, renewable energy is going to be a lot cheaper, electric vehicles, you're going to be selling electricity into the grid if you've got an EV in your house. We've got to describe that future, and we've got to move past some of this sort of rather sour politics of the fossil fuel lobbyists. 2,500 fossil fuel lobbyists at the COP, they were there, I could see them. More people there than there were in delegations from the global south.
Yeah, that is certainly something that the UN needs to take a look at. A lot of people saying that. Mark, listen, we're out of time, but it's good of you to come on, having just returned from Dubai, and certainly we'll focus a little bit more on COP through the course of the programme around the world and across the UK. You're watching BBC News.